Hello students, I am Dr. Tisha Vyas, Assistant Professor Biotechnology at Syusha Institute of Science. In today's lecture, we are going to study regarding the ethical, social as well as the legal aspects involved in the field of biotechnology. The content of the following lecture will include the concept regarding the genetic privacy, the patent for a gene, and the human cloning as well as the ethical issues involved in human cloning. Now, first of all, let us begin with the concept of genetic privacy. See, people often view genetic information about themselves as a private thing, and each person's genome or full complete of the DNA is unique. But the specific variants within an individual's genome may be widely shared with biological relatives or even across the entire human population. So this mixed character of the genome as a uniquely individual assemblance of widely shared common elements, it embosses it with a dual private and public significance that compounds any discussion of the policy addressing the genetic privacy. So on one hand, DNA has been conceptualized as a unique identifier and a person's book of life, which provides insights into many aspects of the person's future, although perhaps not as much as many people might think. So this conceptualize leads many people to want to control who has access to genetic information, and on the other hand, genetic data are not limited to one individual, with information about one person revealing information about the person's close as well as the distant biological relatives. And at the same time, the very concept of privacy has evolved in recent decades, and a new model of privacy has gained ground. The traditional view of privacy as secrecy or concealment as a right to be let alone has grown increasingly strained in the information age. The internet and the communication technologies, it facilitates broad sharing of the information, including highly personal information, often within the individual's knowledge or consent. So deciding how much control people should have over the access to and use of genetic data about themselves has taken on increased urgency in recent years. So dramatic advances in technologies has now made it possible to examine the DNA directly with increasing accuracy and decreasing cost, and thereby contributing to the dramatic growth in genome-based approaches such as exome or genome-based sequencing, which can provide dramatically more information than single gene test. And this genomic test have already proven valuable in diagnosing disorders whose etiology is unknown, as can be the case for some children with developmental disabilities or critical illness. So as this technology and our understanding of genomics have improved, a growing number of individuals and entities seek access to individuals' genetic information. Now let us also study regarding the concept of GWAS catalog. It stands for the Genome Wide Association Studies, and it is an online free database which compiles all the genomes, and it also helps in studying the different literature sources into accessible high quality data. This concept or this catalog was created by the National Human Genome Research Institute in the year 2008, and it is widely used to identify the causal variants as well as to understand the disease mechanisms by biologists, by the bioinformaticians as well as the other researchers. Now let us study regarding the rules and regulations that are involved in genetic privacy, or you can say the ethics of genetic privacy and its current rules and regulations. See, one important step towards privacy protection is ethics, education, and the enforcement of pertinent laws and regulations. And over the years, the research community has walked a fine line between genetic privacy and the open data access. There are technological advances which have been followed, and the companies have been done certain concerns as well as the debates, and there are controversies on a wide range of topics in ethics, the regulations and laws regarding the protection as well as the preservation of genetic privacy. See, although in many cases these regulations and laws have lagged behind, but they do have significant impact on the research, the education, and the clinical practices of personal genomics. So, as indicated by recent privacy and identify the work as well as protecting the genomic similarities, it becomes next to impossible because researchers increasingly combine the patient's data with many type of data from the social media and post to the entries in the databases. So therefore it is necessary to enhance and broaden the educational efforts to train students, the researchers, medical practitioners, and the general public about this available resources for genetic privacy protection. And many large human genome projects provide ethics education such as Human Genome Project, the HapMap project, the Thousand Genomes project, and the Personal Genome Education project. The scientific community is also building ethics about genetic counseling, the prenatal screening, as well as the incidental findings. So there is one milestone regulation of health information protection is the standards for privacy of individually identifiable health information, and it is a privacy rule in the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, which is known as the HIPAA Act. And the privacy rules was established to address the use and the disclosure of individuals' health information by covered entities, and it also provides the standards for individual privacy rights to understand as well as the control the use of their health information. Now it is necessary to note that the covered entities of the privacy rule, it includes the health providers, the insurers, the data clearing houses, and their business partners. Health and medical information has not originated from these covered entities and they are not covered by HIPAA. So therefore, the newly established commercial sequencing as well as the genetic screening companies, they generate a large amount of health information that includes sensitive as well as identifiable data, but it is not regulated by the HIPAA Act. So the emerging consumers health information from home paternity tests, their fitness trackers, health mobile apps, and social media is not protected by HIPAA. It is also necessary that there are certain other acts besides HIPAA which is also involved in the protection of the genetic privacy. Now there are certain techniques which can be used for protecting the genetic privacy, like the controlled access, the differential privacy preservation, as well as the cryptographic solutions. Now let us see what are those. Controlled access. It is similar to the current regime. A classic model for access control allows the users to download data only after the approval has been granted and under defined conditions. As well as what is differential privacy preservation. Differential privacy is a paradigm of post-processing the output of the query such that the inclusions or the exclusions of a single individual from the data set marks no statistical differences to the results found. Now let us have a look at what is intellectual property rights, that is IPR. It is a category of property that includes the intangible creations of the human intellect, and there are many types of intellectual properties and some countries recognize more than others. The most well-known types are the copyright, the patents, trademarks, and the trade secrets. The early precursors to some types of intellectual property existed in societies such as ancient Rome. But the modern concept of the intellectual property developed in England in the 17th and the 18th century. The term intellectual property began to be used in the 19th century, and though it was not until the late 20th century that intellectual property became the commonplace in the majority of the world's legal systems. So the main purpose of the intellectual property law is to encourage the creation of a wide variety of intellectual goods, To achieve this, the law gives people and businesses property rights to the information and intellectual goods they create, usually for a limited period of time. Now, this gives the economic incentive for this creation because it also allows people to profit from the information and the intellectual goods they create. The intellectual property rights, it includes the patent, copyrights, the industrial design rights, trademarks, plant variety rights, trade dress, geographical indications, and also the trade secrets. Now let us see what is a patent. A patent is a form of right that is granted by the government to an inventor of their successor in title and giving the owner the right to exclude others from making, using, selling, and offering to sell and importing an invention for a limited period of time in exchange for the public disclosure of the invention. What is a copyright? A copyright, it gives the creator of an original work exclusive rights to it, usually for a limited time, and a copyright may apply to a wide range of creative, intellectual, or artistic forms or works. A copyright does not cover ideas and informations themselves, only the form or manner in which they are expressed. Now let us see what is the industrial design rights. An industrial design right, it protects the visual design of the objects and that are not purely in utility. An industrial design consists of the creation of the shape, the configuration or composition of the pattern or color or combination of pattern and color in three-dimensional forms. So this is being protected by the industrial design rights. Plant varieties, basically plant breeders rights or plant variety rights are the rights to commercially use a new variety of plant, and the variety must amongst others to be novel and distinct, and for registration the evaluation as well as the propagation material of the variety is considered. Now let us see what are the trademarks. A trademark is basically a recognizable design. It is a sign or expression which distinguishes products or services for a particular trader from similar products or services or the other traders. What is a trade secret? Basically, a trade secret is a formula. It is a practice, process, design, instrument, pattern or compilation of the information which is not generally known as the reasonably ascertainable by which a business can obtain an economic advantage over the competitors as well as the customers. Now let us look further that what is biological patent and the most important question, that can a gene be patented or not. See, a biological patent is the patent of an invention in the field of biology and that by law allows the patent holder to exclude others from making, using, selling or importing the protected invention for a limited period of time. So the scope and reach of biological patents vary amongst the jurisdictions and may include biological technology and products, genetically modified organisms as well as the genetic material. And the applicability of the patent to substance and processes wholly or partially natural in origin is a subject of debate. Now let us see the rules which are involved behind the patenting of the biological materials. See, the patenting of gene is a controversial issue in the terms of bioethics. Some believe it is unethical to patent genetic material because it treats life as a commodity or that it undermines the dignity of the people and animals by allowing the ownership of the genes. So some say that living materials occur naturally and therefore cannot be patented. The American Medical Association's stance is that the gene patent inhibits access to genetic testing for patients and hinder the research on the genetic diseases, while some feel that a patent on living material is unethical. Others also believe that not allowing the patents on biotechnological inventions would also be unethical. Supporters of this idea suggest that patents allow the public as well as the policy makers to hold the owners of the patents accountable acceptable. And they also favor the biological patents because they require disclosure of the information to the public. There are agreements such as the Agreement on Trade Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, that is TRIPS, which requires members of the World Trade Organization, that is WTO, to have the intellectual property protection laws in place for most biological innovations, making it unlikely that many countries will prohibit patents on genes altogether. Some also say that the patenting of gene only commodifies life is a patent applies to an entire human being, arguing that patents on single body part do not violate the human dignity. Another areas of controversy is genetic patenting, is how gene samples are obtained. So prior consent is required to collect gene samples, and collecting of samples from people requires consent at the national as well as the community levels of the individual. And the last major ethical issues involving gene patent is how the patents are used post insurance. Like a major concern is that the use of the patented materials and processes will be very expensive or even prohibited to some degree by conditions the patent owner set. So limiting access like this would directly impact the agricultural institutes and university researchers amongst others. So the ethics of using patents to increase profits are also debatable. A typical argument in favor of biotech patents is that they enable companies to earn money and that the companies in return invest in further research. Now let us have a look at how an individual can undergo the process of filing a patent. See, the overall patent process timeline, it begins with the patent search. It is an optional step and you need not conduct a formal patent search. But however, there are advantages in conducting an informal as well as it also helps in the formal patent search through a patent firm outweigh its benefits. Then the next step is retainers agreement as well as the deposits. So after the patent search, the next step is to file a patent application with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So upon filing the patent application, your product is now patent pending. And some refers to this stage as being the patent protected, but the phrase patent protected is misleading and the product is patent pending but not patent protected in its fullest sense. The next step is if your first filed patent application was filed as a provisional patent application, then a follow-up of the non-provisional patent application must be filed within the 1 year. And after that, the next step is carried out by the office. The office action and the response cycle, it should be completed at least once or twice to get a good feel for the examiner's stance on the matter, and if successful, then a patent is issued and you may at that point enforce your patent against your competitors. The next is the duty to disclosure, that is through the entire pendency of the patent application, all persons involved in the patent application, they have a duty to disclose the relevant information that might cause the examiners to reject the patent application through an information disclosure statement. So overall, the patent process timeline is a long drawn out process and which can be shortened by the petition. Moreover, the cost associated with the patent, it does not end with the filling of the patent application. So there are other downstream costs due to the further communications between the patent attorney and the patent office and the client. The response can be either they can issue the patent to you or they can file an appeal to process the new patent, or they can also abandon the process. There are three types of patents. They are as follows: the utility patents, design patents, and the plant patents. Utility patents involves any new as well as the useful processes like the machines, the article of the manufacture, or the composition of the matter, or any new as well as the useful improvement thereof. The design patents, they are the new, original and the ornamental designs for an article of manufacture. Whereas the plant patents, they are the production of any distinct and new variety of plants. There are basic patent criteria which has to be fulfilled by an individual. That is, the subject that matters must be patentable. It falls under the three types of patents. They are listed below. The first one is that it should be useful. Okay, whatever patent you file, it should have certain sense and it should have certain meaning. It should be novel, that is, the patent which you are filing should not be the same as the previous one, but it should have certain kind of innovation. And it must be non-obvious, that is, not readily apparent subject matter to someone or ordinary skills. So it should not be the obvious thing which is also thought by the other people, but it should be non-obvious. So these are the three important criteria. That the first one is it should be useful, second one is it should be innovative or novel, and the third one, it should be the non-obvious. And one must also be able to sufficiently describe all the three criterias. Now let us see that which of the biological materials can be patentable. These are the list of the patentable inventions. The first one, that is the isolated bacteria and the other prokaryotes as well as the fungi, algae, protozoa, plasmids, viruses, prions, they all are patentable. You can also patent the cell lines as well as the cell organelles and the hybridomas. It also involves the genetic vectors as well as the expression systems. You can also patent the apparatus or the materials that are used for the enzymology or the microbial processes. You can also patent the compositions of microorganisms or the enzymes. There are products like or there are methods like propagating, the preserving as well as the maintenance of the microorganisms. Such methodologies or such protocols can also be patented. Then there is mutagenesis as well as genetic engineering processes which can also be patentable, like the genetically modified organisms as well as the genetically manipulated crops, plants. Then there are processes like the fermentation or the enzyme which are used in the processes to synthesize certain desired compounds. Then the measuring or the testing processes also involving the enzymes or the microorganisms can be patented. And there are certain processes using enzymes or microorganisms to liberate as well as to separate or purify, or it can be used to cleaning of the products. Such enzymes can also be patented. And the use of microorganisms to produce foods or beverages, such microorganisms can also be patented. Now let us look further that the genetic modifications or the manipulations made in certain organisms can also be patented. Now the genotypically or phenotypically modifications in the living organisms can be patented. The proteins or the polypeptides isolated from such modified organisms can also be patented. And there are certain DNA, you can either say the synthetic DNA or the nucleic acid sequencing, which carries the genetic information, can also be patented. And isolated protein from the gene can also be patented. There are vectors, then the methods that is used for the transformation of such gene into a genetically modified organism can also be patented. The host cells which are carrying the transgenic material can also be patented. Then there are also higher plants or animals which are carrying the transgenic material. Those substances or those organisms can also be patented. And there are organisms which are used for the expression of a protein can also be patented. The recombinant DNA methods such as the PCR as well as the expression systems, such protocols as well as the such methodologies used in genetic manipulations can also be patented. Now let us study regarding the patents which are used for the DNA or the gene sequences. See, a gene patent is the exclusive right to a specific sequence of DNA given by the government to the individual or the organization or the corporation who claims to have first identified the gene. So once granted a gene patent, the holder of the patent, it dictates how the gene can be used in both the commercial settings such as the clinical genetic testing and in the non-commercial testing, including research for 20 years from the date of the patent. So gene patents have often resulted in companies having the sole ownership of the genetic testing for patented genes. On June 13, 2013, in the case of the Association for Molecular Pathology, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that human genes cannot be patented in the US because the DNA is a product of nature, and the court decided that because something new is created when discovering a gene, there is no intellectual property to protect, so patents cannot be granted. So prior to this ruling, more than 4,300 human genes were already being patented. The Supreme Court's decision invalidated those gene patents and making the genes accessible for research and for commercial genetic testing. The Supreme Court's ruling, it did not allow the DNA manipulated in the lab is eligible to be patented because the DNA sequences altered by the humans are not found in nature. And the court specifically mentioned that the ability to patent a type of DNA known as the complementary DNA, or you can say the cDNA, and this synthetic DNA is produced from the molecule that serves as the instructions for making the proteins, or you can also call the messenger or the mRNAs. Now let us see that what is human cloning as well as the ethical issues which are involved regarding the human cloning. See, human cloning, it is the creation of a genetically identical copy of an existing, or you can say the previously existing human being, or the growing clone tissue from that individually. So the term is generally used to refer to artificial human cloning, or you can say the human clones in the form of identical twins, and with their cloning occurring during the natural process of the reproduction. Now in bioethics, the ethics of cloning, it refers to a variety of ethical positions regarding the practice, then the possibilities of cloning, especially human cloning. So while many of these views are religious in origin, some of the questions raised by cloning are faced by the secular perspectives as well. Let us look at the religious issues. See, all the religions, they have their certain as well as the personal religious issues like Jainism and Hinduism. Hinduism views on cloning are very diverse. While some Hindu people view therapeutic cloning as necessary to fix the childlessness, others believe it is immoral to tamper with the nature. The Judaism, or you can say the Jewish view on cloning is unclear, but some Orthodox rabbis allows the cloning as a method of reproduction if no other method is available. Christianity, most of the Christian churches, they include World Council of Churches and United Methodist Church, and it opposes the research of cloning of either human embryos or the whole human. Then Islam. According to the fatwa issued by the Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradi in the topic of cloning, Islam is opposed to the human cloning, and according to Islam, cloning of the entire body is forbidden because of the following reasons: that it is contradicts the diversity of the creation, then there is a relationship between the donor and the clone which cannot be determined, and also cloning only requires one gender for genetic information, which opposes the natural pattern of creating life by the pairing of the male and the female. There are certain medical issues which are also faced by the human cloning, that clone animals are used in either for medical research, pet cloning, or for food. Medical research, it claims that the cloned animal, it can be used in many scientific as well as medical research like the therapeutic cloning, stem cell research, and the human antibody production. So one of the main ethics issues which bothers most people is about this research procedure is it and can be painful, or the animal can often result in the mental as well as the physical damage. And another ethic problem is that the clone related medical purposes, they have very poor life as tests and are constantly being conducted on them. Now let us see the pros and the cons of the human cloning. The pros, first of all, it involves the defective genes which can be eliminated from or by the human cloning method. Then there can be faster recovery from any kind of injuries. The infertility, which is a common problem, it can be eliminated by the using of a human cloning procedure. Then there are certain clone body parts which can also serve as the backup system for the humans. It can also help in relieving or curing a human being from the genetic disorders, or you can say the diseases. It also helps to replicate animals through the method of research, as well as certain alterations can also be made in the plants and the animals, and it also helps a person to obtain desirable characteristics or traits. The cons. Now there is a possibility of faster aging. It can also reduce the sense of individuality. Then it can reduce the overall value of the human life. It can also weaken the diversity as well as the ability of the adaptation and the production of certain undesirable characteristics or the traits can be observed through the method of human cloning. It also invites certain malpractices into the society, and the humans, they can act as god. There are certain worldviews like the Australia, it has prohibited human cloning, as well as the therapeutic cloning is now legal in some parts of Australia. In Canada, the Canadian laws, it prohibits the following, that is the human cloning, the cloning of stem cells, growing human embryos for research purposes, and also buying or the selling of the embryos or the sperms or eggs or any other human reproductive material. India does not have any such specific laws regarding the cloning, but it has guidelines which has prohibited the whole human cloning or the reproductive cloning, and it also allows the therapeutic cloning and the use of embryonic stem cells which are for using for the research purposes. Then Argentina, it prohibits experiments which are related to the cloning of human cells and in order to generate the human clone. Now let us look further that what is stem cell as well as the embryo genetic counseling. See, this transfer of stem cell is not raising any kind of ethical concerns, but the only thing is that it cannot be expanded through the method of in vitro. And there are two types of stem cells procedure, that is the cord blood stem cells, and it can be deposited inside the bank, and it can also be used for certain kind of transplantations in any kind of diseases, and it can also be used as an alternative to the bone marrow transplantation. The second one, that is the adult blood stem cells, it occurs in many kind of tissues and can be differentiated into specialized cells in their origin, and it can be used in many processes like the hemopoietic stem cells, and it can also be used to differentiate into all the three kinds of blood cells, and also it can be used in diseases of the cardiomyocytes as well as the liver cells. And there are certain ethical issues which are being raised at the different phases of the stem cell research, like the destruction of the embryos, then the payment to the oocyte donors, then there are medical risk of the oocytes retrieval, there are certain protecting reproductive interest of the woman in the infertility treatment, and there are also conflicting legal as well as ethical standards. Then there are certain risks as well as benefits which are involved in the stem cell transfer. Now let us see that what is the genetic counseling, or you can say the embryonic stem cells as well as the genetic counseling. See, there are many decisions about family planning, then there is genetic testing as well as prenatal diagnosis which are personal. So genetic counseling at the Genetics and the IVF Institute is a process that will assist any individual in receiving a decision that is in the best interest of their family, and the genetic counselor will also assist them in sorting their medical information, and it will also help an individual to be informed regarding their medical conditions. Now there are certain common reasons which are included in genetic counseling, that whether a person or its partner is the immediate family and is having a genetic disorder or the birth defect or any kind of mental retardation. A person can be of 35 years of age or more at the time of pregnancy delivery, and the person can also have a previous pregnancy with a birth defect or genetic condition. Then there are certain abnormal first trimester screening as well as the abnormal second trimester screening which also is involved during the genetic counseling, and they can also seek information regarding the screening as well as the diagnostic testing as well as the medications which can be used during such conditions. The main questions of this lecture includes that what is genetic privacy, and you also have to mention the ethics as well as the current regulations involved in it. The second one, you need to explain the patent process and the criteria involved behind the patenting of a gene. The third one, that is to mention all the patentable inventions and also of the genetically modified organisms. The fourth one, that is to explain the ethical issues which are involved regarding the human cloning. And the fifth one is the stem cells and the embryo genetic counseling, and to explain in detail. Thank you for hearing me out. If you have any queries, you can mail me.